joining us this morning. CONRAD, good morning.
Good morning, Sana. How are you?
I am well. Are you?
I'm doing well, by His grace.
Well, we thank God. First of all, whilst we are at it, we are just discussing the issue of the Galamsey, and you are in the UK. How is your Galamsey also going? Because
Fortunately for us here, our Galamsey there's no polluting our rivers.
Okay.
So all our rivers are okay. Because the people here were wise enough to follow President Mohammed's advice, if you like, where they make sure that if you are given a concession, you will put a deposit down on to cover how much it will cost to if you like, reclaim and fix the land when you are done. You take the right insurance, and so and you are heavily policed so that you are not washing your galamsey into rivers. So by the time your mining is done, whether it is coal or whatever you are mining for, you have that fund there ready for what? Restoring the environment. It's environmentally friendly mining and a provision for you to put some of the money you are making away, so the government can use that to restore the land if you fail to restore it when you are done. And I think that what President Mahama said is the wisest thing to do. But as you all know, all the DCs, all the party chairmen of the MPP now, they are all into this galamsey thing, and they are determined to make money regardless of the cost to us. A bit shameful that the great River Birim that brought and nurtured our president and many renowned personalities from Chebi, is the color of that river now is more than chocolate drink. It's polluted. So it's a shame. It's a shame, Sana.
Having said that, then our president has renewed his commitment to fighting galamsey. He's met the chiefs, and they are discussing instead he won't shield anybody. That's commitment that perhaps will get us to that level, I'm guessing.
Sana, let me use a simple social analogy. How do you renew a commitment to a woman that you never married in the first place? I'll go and tell a woman that I just met, never married, say, let's go and go and renew our marriage. There's nothing to renew because there was no commitment in the first place. What he should have been saying is he is now going to commit to a galamsey fight. Because let's be honest, there are two angles here. If what has happened since he came into power and put his so-called presidency on the line for galamsey amounts to commitment, my brother, if what has happened up to date amounts to commitment, then renewing it will make no difference, or will it? Because with all that commitment, what are we seeing? Akonta mining. I saw a letter yesterday from Forestry Commission authorizing Akonta mining to be allowed to go into another forest. You have DCE for Bosomifreho encouraging people, bring the Chinese, let's get them in, then we will get our money. From Western region to Ashanti region, everywhere, even Ashanti has had to speak. Odike was very, very bold enough to speak, and some chiefs decided to gag him. What happened? Ashanti himself has seen it, and he's had to speak. So if all that has happened amounted to the fruits of Nanado's commitment to fighting galamsey, then renewing that commitment is actually chaos for us. It is better without that commitment, because I don't see what commitment is leading to a deterioration. If you are committing to something and it's leading to a deterioration, then you better not commit. If this is commitment, then what will be non-commitment?
Well, let's move on to our issue for discussion. Another area where we are worried about is the matter of the economy. Let me start from the most recent development. I'm sure you've heard from Gota complain about the cost of borrowing at this time. They say it's adding up to the inflation cost. They've been asking the Bank of Ghana to stop increasing the policy rates. Yesterday, the Bank of Ghana has raised the policy rate once again from 22% to over 24%. Does this move add up in any way for you?
Sana, I think even Guta people are what I call the real market economists. They have all picked out that when you have runaway inflation, and you know very well that in our part of the world, increasing your policy rate is going to have no impact at all on taming inflation, but it is rather going to make it worse. They are the ones who do the trading. They know the impact. A month ago, specifically on 5th of September, Bank of Ghana projected that they expect to increase policy rate to 22% by the end of the year. So that's in September. They expected that October, November, December, the next quarter, the next 3 months, they will end the year, end of December, in 22%. 30 days later, on the 6th of August, sorry, 6th of October, they hiked it to 24%. Now, most analysts, and there's a particular gentleman, Courage Boti, an economist at Ghana Commercial Bank, he has diagnosed it. The reason Bank of Ghana is increasing this policy rate is to react to its own monetization of the deficit. What do I mean by that? Bank of Ghana is basically giving money to Government of Ghana where Government of Ghana is unable to get it. So if you look at recent auctions where Government of Ghana goes for treasury bills, goes for bonds, it puts the auctions there, and on one of the few occasions, nobody wants to buy treasury bills anymore. Nobody wants to buy Government of Ghana bonds anymore. And there's a reason. And so whenever government goes there and nobody is buying, guess who has to make up the difference? Bank of Ghana. So Bank of Ghana is now monetizing that deficit. They are in charge of monetary policy, which is dealing with the inflow and outflow of money in the economy. If there's too much money, you take some out to tame inflation and so on and so forth. Government of Ghana is in charge of fiscal policy, which is responsible for collecting taxes and spending them. So that's revenue and expenditure. You now have Bank of Ghana leaving their monetary policy role and then interfering to support government. When government goes to borrow money and can't get enough, the Bank of Ghana will pump that money into them. And we all know that the more you pump money in, the more inflation goes up. So with one hand, Bank of Ghana is trying to help Government of Ghana. And by doing that to Government of Ghana, they are pushing inflation down. And on the other hand, they are now saying, okay, we just pumped some money into the economy to help the Government of Ghana, but that has shot inflation up. Let's see if we can pull that money back by going to increase policy rate, which will increase the amount of the rate at which lenders will borrow, but at the same time also increase the rate at which depositors will get interest. So because everybody will now say, oh, 24%, we like it, so we will go and buy treasury bills. Bear in mind, even at about 32% now, treasury bills are over around 30%. People are not buying. So you can see that it is not adding up. If all things being equal, if Bank of Ghana had pumped in 2 billion into the economy, right, and knew that this has an inflationary pressure, it has caused inflation, and decided to mop it up or take it back out by increasing the interest rate so that people who have taken that money will bring it back to them with a view to get higher interest, then everything would have worked fine. What Bank of Ghana is forgetting is that at this stage, Senna, even if Government of Ghana says we are going to pay you 50% on the bond, but you and I know that Fitch and Moody's have downgraded. The World Bank has said, IMF have said that they have to do restructuring. And what restructuring means is that if Government of Ghana owes you money, they'll come and say they can't pay all. So if they say they're going to do, say, 20% restructuring or debt restructuring, and Government of Ghana owes you 100 cedis, that means they will come and take a 20% haircut. They'll say to you, we can't pay you the 100 cedis, we'll only give you what? 20 cedis. 80 cedis. So you lose 20 cedis. So, Sarah, if they lure you with even 50% interest, will you go and put your money in that bond, knowing very well that tomorrow they can come back and say, I can't pay, so I won't pay you all the money I said I'll pay? So you'll be chasing 50% interest and lose your actual capital. So you can see the Bank of Ghana is causing inflationary pressures by monetizing the deficit. In other words, funding government's deficit by pumping money to government. Because government cannot borrow anymore from the international conference, they are closing out. Government cannot borrow locally because not everybody wants to buy from them. So Bank of Ghana is giving them that money and then turn around to say, oh, I have just pushed money in, it has raised inflation. Let me see if I can take some of that money back by increasing interest rate. Now, this is the thing. You increase the interest rates, you and I, being rational beings, we will be chasing good interest. But we won't chase good interest at the risk of losing our original capital. So if I have 100,000 Ghana cedis and you tell me you are hiking it to 24%, and then I say, okay, let me go and buy a bond at 24%, meaning I'll get 24,000 Ghana. Then tomorrow IMF is already warning me that you may take a haircut of 20 to 25%. So if you take a haircut of 25%, it means that 100,000 I've put in there, I'll lose 25,000. So I'm chasing 24 million and 24,000, and I end up losing 25,000. Haven't I lost 1,000? So this is the reason why their increase of monetary the policy rate is not making a difference to the inflation, because people will not bring their money in knowing they may not get that money. Why would I be chasing interest and lose the original money? It doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, they are busy bailing government out by monetizing the deficit, giving government money, and making the whole situation worse. So, Sana, I'm not an expert. I have not worked at Bank of Ghana. I won't behave like Bawumia, but I can tell you that on the strict economist basis, I won't go and put my money somewhere to chase interest, knowing very well that IMF is saying that I may lose that money. And the debt of the risk of default is the reason why, if you look at the reasons why Moody's and Fitch have recently downgraded us, one of the key reasons is the risk of default. And what is default? If you can't pay your debt, and you go and even do a restructuring and say, I can't pay, therefore I will reduce some. That is technically a default, Senna.
That's interesting. So this is counterproductive. It will just achieve the same result it has been achieving for some time now.
In my view, that is exactly where, and look, it was what, 19%? If you remember, inflation was around 19% when Bank of Ghana started increasing policy rate. Now, where is inflation? Technically, it's at 35%, 34, 35%. So if the constant increase in policy rate was being was effective, why has it not brought inflation down? But yet inflation is still galloping. But you see, as they are chasing it, they are hoping that we're using monetary economic policy, we will all listen and bring money to them for chase that interest rate. As they increase interest rates for we those who are going to put money there, they are forgetting that the banks will also follow that.
Hello, Conrad. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Okay. I think I lost you at. You're talking about what the banks would do.
Yes, what I said is, if they increase the policy rate in the hope that we, the depositors, will bring more money and give to government, right, so that they don't have to bail government out, they are also forgetting that once the banks have increased that, the banks will also follow the policy rate increase and increase the cost of borrowing, the interest they charge on loans. So when Guta and Co now go for loans, they will find that they have to pay a higher interest. So it's on the one hand, you are eating your cake, and on the other hand, you think you can have it. That is the policy conundrum that Bank of Ghana is facing now.
Because when I read from Daily Guide on page 9, this is their headline. BoG hikes policy rate to 24.5% to tame soaring prices. So it means that the target is inflation. That will not work, from what you're saying.
I don't think it will work. The reality is, the past has shown that it hasn't worked so far. So why will it work in the future? That one is a very simple question. I mean, that's why I deliberately went back and said, when they started hiking these interest rates, these policy rates, our inflation was around 17.5 to 19%. Now it's at 34%. Senna, if you keep doing something and it's not working, why will you carry on doing that? And at the root of this, Senna, is the fact that you should have independent monetary policy from fiscal policy. And I'm hoping that Ghanaians can see the reason why it is good to have an independent central bank from the Ministry of Finance. As we speak now, that independence is not there. And so what Bank of Ghana is doing with good intention is actually worsening the inflation problem. And that is why Guta is complaining. That is why most people are shocked. Because you are doing it, it's not working. You are still doing it. You are just visiting. Inflation will go up because once you increase this, Guta will go to borrow. They'll borrow at higher rate to do business, which means they have to translate those higher interest costs into the prices. So when they also increase their prices to cope with the cost of interest, inflation will go up more, and we are back to square one.
One thing you said is that you're not an expert when it comes to monetary economy. You see this is the problem. In fact, they've tried over and over again, is not working. You say the only reason they are doing this is in the hope that this will help mop up money that they won't get in the first place.
Yes, and your line is not quite clear. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
Yes, I'm saying that, is there any other motivation that you can see? Anything that they will achieve with this at all?
So, Senna, at this stage, they are throwing the textbook at the problem. Why am I saying so? In economics, we tend to have two schools of thought. You have the Keynesian school of thought, right, by the famous economist, Keynes, and then you have the monetary school of thought that comes from the Americans. Clearly, what these guys are now trying to do is to attempt, because government has run out of the tools it could use to, if you like, tame this inflation. So they are now resorting to the monetarist idea of, if we can withdraw more money from the economy, there will be a little less money chasing goods and services, which means inflation will come down. But this is no different from that textbook economics approach that Bawumia has been using to run the economics management team. Sometimes when you are in a ditch, you stop digging. Because as we have seen, what they need to do is take a step back. The root cause of this problem was not too much money in the economy, Senna. The root cause of this problem is our debt problem, which is leading to us using a lot of money to pay, to service our debt, right? And the CD is now depreciating on the back of that, because the more we use more CDs to chase dollars to pay debt, that means the CD continues to come down against the dollar, but we are importing in dollars. So that depreciation is automatically increasing cost. So you should be looking to tackle the problem from that angle, not looking to tackle it from a completely different angle.
So they should be dealing with depreciation.
They should be tackling our debt problem, which is leading to our CD depreciation, not sucking in more money or taking more money out. That is my view. I have not worked at Bank of Ghana, unlike Bawumia. But you see, it's time for them to say, different countries may have inflation problem, but you need to go back to the source and say, how did we get here? Why? We all know that because the CD is dancing palugo, anytime the CD collapses, the cost of imports goes up, particularly fuel, because we buy our fuel in dollars and we sell in cedis. So you should be asking yourself, and that CD collapse is because of the debt overhang. So work on the debt. We should have had a negotiations completed with IMF by now. But the more we are delaying, the more the CD is under siege, and the more the CD under siege, the more our we are importing inflation. Basically, that is the problem I'm talking about here. It is not too much money chasing too little goods. It's a case of we importing inflation. So we need to go back and tackle the root cause, and not start trying to. When there's fire in your house, you don't go pouring water in your gutter. It is not going to solve your problem. You need to get the water onto the roof where the fire is, not pouring the water under in the gutter, or opening your tap and spraying your whole yard when the problem is the roof.
Meanwhile, the World Bank is predicting that debt will reach 104.6% of GDP by the end of the year. What signals should we be picking from that?
The thing is, the more the debt goes up, the more the percentage of our revenue that is used to service the debt goes up, right? And the more we use more CDs to chase the servicing of that debt. Senna, and the more we use more CDs to chase dollars to pay that debt, the more inflation goes up. So you can see it. What the World Bank has said is getting to the heart of the problem. But what Bank of Ghana is doing is playing around the problem. Because at the end of the day, Senna, we will come to why this is there. Look, what has Ghana done to get to 104%? Senna, technically, last year, these people were telling us, Oforiata was telling us that we should have been at 76.6% to GDP ratio. But we all knew that if he had calculated it correctly last year, we would already be beyond this 100%. The reason we have got to 100% is because IMF and World Bank have now told us to put everything into the basket. What do I mean by put everything into the basket? You remember it wasn't long ago when 2018, we went for Sino-Hydro deal. The minority went to the same IMF, and this is sometimes the problem I have with the IMF and World Bank. Sometimes they are not honest. They tell political truths. Every single child in finance knew that transaction was a loan. Because China was going to offer you services and you were going to pay back. Whether you are paying back in cash or you are paying back in goods, you still owe them. Senna, how can I say, I owe you 10,000? So if I'm going to pay in cash, then I'll record that I owe you. So it's a debt. But if I'm going to give you a car for that 10,000, then I'll write that it is not a debt. Does it make sense? The whole principle of a debt is that I have to pay back. Whether I pay in cash, I pay in cowries, I'll pay in cocoa, I pay in bauxite, I owe you something I need to pay, and that is debt. But the IMF decided to side with the government then and told the minority, government is treating it below the line. In other words, they are not adding it to our debt. That has been sitting there. Now, all that the IMF has simply said is, add it back because it should be part of your debt. It takes IMF 4 years, it takes this government 4 years to see what the NDC minority in parliament had seen a long time ago. So when you add that debt, together with Cocoa Board debt, how did we get to Cocoa Board? Cocoa Board now owes more than 13 billion cedis. And now when you split that money, you realize something interesting happening there. Oforiatta started using Cocoa Board to borrow. Historically, we will go and borrow Eurobond, syndicated loan, buy the cocoa from our farmers. When we sell and make money, we pay the loan back. Just like what Oforiatta did to the GET fund, just like what he did to ESLA fund, he started collateralizing Cocoa Board as well. They will go and borrow the money. When they come and they go and buy the cocoa and sell, when they now collect the money from the sales, instead of paying the debt, they won't pay it. So that debt continues to add up. So in 5 short years, Cocoa Board, just one single government entity. You have ECG there, you have all the others. Cocoa Board alone in 5 years has accrued almost 13 billion, more than 13 billion of cedis of debt. And they were keeping it in Cocoa Board books, forgetting that who owns Cocoa Board? Government owns Cocoa Board 100%. And in public finance, your debt is not just central government debt, but the debt of all other parastatals that are owed to government, because eventually government will pay it back. IMF is now telling Oforiatta, and some interesting situations where Minister of Finance owes Cocoa Board for money that Cocoa Board borrowed and Minister of Finance hasn't paid. The Minister of Finance is supposed to pay you 2.5 billion, they don't pay. It's part of that debt. So now they have been told to return that debt into Government of Ghana books. So when you take Cocoa Board debt, and you take the Sino-Hydro debt that they were reporting below the line, you add it back to our debt, now you get 104%. So Senna, tell me, if we had recognized Cocoa Board debt plus Sino-Hydro debt last year, would we have got that 76% that we said was the debt to GDP? So you see, it's all like all our hands are now coming home to roost. And they are coming home at the time that our hen coop has been destroyed. So here we are.
Well, Conrad, thank you very much for speaking to us.
You are welcome, Senna. Thank you.
Conrad DUMBAH is an accounting and auditing professional based in the UK. This is the difficulty we are confronted with. So we're just looking at that also as part of the discussion we're having this morning. We have talked about the wager flats. The Galamsey